Christianity ended in 70 AD, part 2. So we're going to talk about who was Jesus Christ. What was the point in Jesus? Who is he? Well, Jesus was God's plan since the beginning, since Adam and Eve. See that Jesus was the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. It was always God's plan. It was God's will, believe it or not, for mankind to fall so that he could send Jesus Christ so that we could have what we have today. This is very important as we go through the series. Like Paul said, the creature was subject to vanity, not willingly, but by the will of him who subjected the same in hope, which is, the creature was subject, all of creation was subject to this vanity so that God could send Jesus Christ. He did not just send him and then Satan take over and God go, oh my God, what just happened? Satan took over 2 people. I create 2 people, now they're all gone. God knew what was going to happen the entire time. Jesus Christ was God's plan. So here we have Adam and Eve, and then the fall. Satan brought sin in the grave. He said, in the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. They didn't drop dead that day, but they were separated from the presence of God as they had the presence of God back then. And then they had the grave to look forward to because of sin. So Satan brought sin and the grave. Jesus Christ came to defeat sin, Satan, and the grave, to reconcile us. He had the gospel of reconciliation. God was in him reconciling the world to himself because it was always God's plan. We see Adam and Eve didn't need Jesus Christ. Then they fell. Then they needed a redeemer. A redeemer comes. He fixes it, gives us access to the Father again. This is the whole point in Jesus. What took us away from God? Satan and sin. What do we have to look forward to? The grave. What did Jesus do? Defeated sin, Satan, and the grave. He was the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. He took away the sins of the world, not just for their sins, but for the sins of the whole world. Behold the Lamb that takes away the sins of the world. He appeared once in the end of the age, or the end of the world, to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. To those that looked for him, he appeared again a second time without sin, unto salvation. We'll get into that more as we go. He was the sacrifice for sins, the propitiation for their sins. As Daniel said, he would make an end of sin and a reconciliation for evil. But for God to send Jesus, he had to call a people. He called Abraham after the flood because he destroyed the world through sin. They all sinned. They couldn't do it. He was mad. He destroyed the world through sin. And then he said he would never destroy man off the face of the earth again. That's Genesis 8:21. And instead, he would call him a people, Abraham. And through that seed, they would birth a redeemer into the world to take away the sins of the world so the world could have access to the Father again. Lo, I come in the volume of the book, it is written of me. Everything was a shadow and talking about Jesus Christ. He called them. They had circumcision to cut off where the fallen seed came from. This gave God rights to their flesh again. Hey, Abraham, I'll make a covenant between me and you. This will mean that I have rights to your flesh, that you are my people, that you are admitting that you are a fallen seed. Cut off where the seed comes from. Reveal it to me. Stop hiding from me. And I will be your people. You will be my people. And you'll bring forth Jesus Christ. So then he tells Abraham that he's going to have a miracle child, Isaac, right? After Sarah was through menopause, he's going to have Isaac. He goes to sacrifice Isaac. And God says, don't do it, of course. But that was a show of Jesus Christ. Abraham knew, like it said in Hebrews, that if he sacrificed Isaac, that God was able to raise him from the dead because he had faith in God. And God told him that in Isaac would be a great seed without number. So whenever he said go sacrifice him, Abraham was like, all right, this is going to be cool. You're going to raise him back from the dead. Because he knew that this is the only thing. It had to be a promised child. It had to be a sacrifice. And that would end sin one day. And that was a show of Jesus Christ. Which is why whenever he went to sacrifice him, he said no. Abraham said, don't worry. God will provide a sacrifice. And then he provided them a sacrifice. A show of Jesus again. Stay tuned for the rest of the series. I'm going to get into on the next part stuff about how Jesus was the fulfillment of what was happening in the Old Testament before we really get into the other stuff. We will correlate who Jesus was according to what was written in the Old Testament and how he was perfect for that, how the timing and everything was perfect. Stay tuned.